What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, and in this brand new Overwatch video, I'm going to be going over 5 low elo heroes that are guaranteed to easily help you climb the low ranks, and then 5 high elo heroes that, if mastered, these heroes can easily farm high elo opposition and let you climb to the peaks of Overwatch competition. And the GameLeap website has in-depth VOD reviews and advanced tips and tricks about every single one of the heroes on this list, so do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. And I can't wait to see you there. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Now let's do this list as low elo, then high elo, then low elo, then high elo, back and forth, so that there's a little something for everyone. And remember that I consider low elo anything from platinum and below, and high elo anything from diamond and above. And all the tips and tricks and things I'm going to talk about for high elo players is going to be a little bit harder on them, because I expect them to do more things, or they need to do more things if they want to climb even higher. So first off, let's talk about our first low elo pick, and it's none other than Doomfist. Now Doomfist is our low elo pick, our first low elo pick, for one reason and one reason alone. There is no peel in low elo, and if you play in low elo, you know what I'm talking about. Does anyone come and help you when you're a support being attacked? But Doofus just suddenly appears in your backline. Who is gonna come save you? Is your Roadhog that's flanking gonna come save you, or your McCree that is in their backline gonna come save you? What about your Lucio teammate that is just flying around the map doing whatever, who knows what he's doing? None of these people are going to peel for you. And if you're the Doomfist player, you can abuse that, because Doomfist, realistically, if he gets the jump on just about any character, he can 1v1 them. And if no one gets peel, you can easily get a kill, get out with ease. And once you get your ultimate, it's even more so, because after you kill someone, 1, 2, 3, what they're doing is they're freaking out in comms. They're saying, hey, what the heck, get this guy off me. And by the time they all focus you down, you already have that ultimate. They're gonna try to focus you, you're gonna ult away, you're gonna get more value, and it's just a vicious cycle. And Doofus is also one of the best characters that you can whip out, because it takes teams a while to kind of get used to your habits. And if they don't expect a Doomfist, or you haven't played Doomfist all game, and you just whip out to a Doomfist on good maps for Doomfist with high grounds that you can run away to, Doomfist is just gonna annihilate in a low elo lobby. So I would highly suggest Doomfist in low elo. Use him, abuse him, and, you know, gain that free SR. Now moving on to the first high elo character that I'm going to tell you to play, and this has been better and better recently than it's been in a long time, and it's none other than Sombra. You see, Sombra is being played in the Overwatch League because against double shield, Sombra can absolutely farm. Sombra is a very consistent tank abuser, and when you have high quality tanks, and when you're in high elo, there's going to be higher quality tanks here and there, but Sombra can abuse some of the best ones. Roadhog, Diva, even put a lot of pressure into Zarya from the high ground when Zarya can't put a lot of pressure back. Wrecking Ball just can't exist against you. You can put pressure into Monkey. There's just so many different things, and if you get that mechanical skill to the level of a similar high elo Tracer player, for instance, Sombra can frag pretty well, especially when you start on the high ground. You have a pretty far range, so you can start spraying at someone as you fall. You can translocate back to the high ground. You can duel them in that way, and that can be a really consistent way as long as you put in practice to the mechanical aspect of Sombra. Another thing you could do is catch people during their retreat. A lot of characters, if they get hacked in their retreat, they're of course going to get killed very easily. A Monkey, for instance, will jump in bubble, but when he jumps out, if he gets hacked on the retreat, you're going to be able to focus him down, chase him down, put a lot of pressure into him. He might not even be able to jump away the way he wants to. So that is something that you have to abuse, and in this current meta right now, there is not a lot of shields to block you. There is nothing to stop your hacks. Play the high ground, farm, build up your mechanical skill, outbrain enemies, and you're gonna do just fine right now. Now, moving on to the next character in the low elo that I would highly suggest you play is none other than Roadhog. Now, Roadhog is very, very good. Of course, everyone knows how powerful Roadhog is right now. Even with the nerfs that are coming down the pipeline, Roadhog is, will be, and always has been an insanely powerful character to play in low elo, because he doesn't need anything from anyone. He's essentially a DPS that can flank, play the front line, heal himself. He doesn't need anyone's help, and he can carry games. Now, the most overpowered thing that you can abuse in low elo with Roadhog is the fact that enemies don't have object permanence. And this means that when they don't see a Roadhog for a while, they don't think anything of it. They don't think that maybe that Roadhog is in their backline on that flank or whatever the case may be. A Roadhog that sets up flanks during the enemy setup when they're trying to regroup, when he sets up flanks in unopportune times or hides in corners waiting for enemies to peek out, or he even spawn camps. There is so much to abuse with Roadhog, and enemies can't afford to be unaware of where you are or constantly thinking about what you're going to do. And if they ever slip up, you're going to be there as just a really fat self-sustaining DPS to punish them with ease. Now, the next character that we have for high elo, which is the exact mirror to this, is actually Zarya. And Zarya might be one of the best characters to play right now in high elo because she has a very high win rate for one, and two, she is very much so anti-hog. A good Zarya can keep a Roadhog in check, bubble all of his hooks, put tons of pressure into his shield. She can straight up frag people when she has high energy, which she's going to get very easily. Zarya is a very, very strong hero to play right now, but you're gonna need a few things. The first thing that you're gonna need is understanding of how to push in and retreat at appropriate times with bubble usage. This is pretty commonplace for Zarya, but the maximum on that is important, and as such, you should be communicating to your other tank as much as possible. As much as they will work with you, try to communicate with them so that you get the maximum amount of charge on your weapon, because that's gonna contribute to the maximum amount of ultimate charge and just your lethality and all those type of factors. The next thing is your tracking cannot be slacking, okay? I don't know why. The thing about Zarya is, if you look at some of the best Zaryas in the world, some really, really talented Zarya players, all of them really have some of the best tracking in the world. I mean, look at Sinatra, who is known as one of the best hit scan players in the entire world right now, dominating Valorant. He dominated Overwatch. He was a great Zarya player, and mechanical skill is a big part of being a Zarya. You cannot just fill to Zarya if you have terrible aim. It's not a character for you, and if you want to play Zarya, you best be working on that tracking, okay? It is incredibly important. It's going to allow you to get tons of kills that you wouldn't be able to do, and when you start to max out that tracking stat, you're going to start to have way more aggressive power on Zarya. You're going to start racking up those kills, and you're going to be able to carry tons of high elo games. Now, the next character on the list for the low elo that I highly suggest you abusing is none other than Moira. Now, Moira is a really, really awesome hero to abuse for a lot of reasons. The perhaps biggest reason, though, is the fact that at low elo, the amount of headshots that are going to be coming your way are going to be few and far between. And if you have good movement, you understand how to crouch spam, jiggle left and right on Moira while still either healing or doing damage, a lot of McCrees, Ashes, Widows, whatever they are going to be freaking out by the fact that this Moira is impossible to hit. Just having good movement alone can easily carry you on Moira. And then when you get the movement down, you're going to be able to start taking a little bit more aggressive positioning and duels with some of these DPS. And you're going to realize that with good movement, some DPS just aren't going to be able to kill you. Some players are just not going to be able to punish you. As long as you stay away from that CC, you get up in their face, you understand how they aim and how to move to counteract it, you're going to be able to farm so many games on Moira, and it is comically easy to climb to at least Diamond on Moira. As long as you only master movement, go into a workshop, look at yourself in third person, watch how you move, and move in a way that moves your head hitbox the maximum amount, and practice it over and over again. You can even play something like Triad Free For All or whatever the case may be. Now, moving on to the next character in the high elo tier, we gotta talk about a support now, Ana. And Ana is, in my opinion, the hardest carry right now. I mean, Ana can shut down hogs, she can enable tanks, she can duel enemies. Ana is a top tier support right now, and is definitely one that you probably already are playing if you're in high elo, or at the very least, you should be playing if you do not have one on your team. Now, the big thing about Ana that you need to understand is, if you want to reach the peaks of Ana performance, if you want to start carrying tons of games, having inverse impact, every single time that you don't need to be doing your job for healing, you should be trying to make a play with your abilities. Whether that means a 3-man nade, a fat sleep dart, or just trying to duel an enemy mechanically, there is so much that you could do on Ana that your actions per minute can be so high. I mean, just go watch someone like ML7 play on his stream. How many decisions and how many things does he do every single time? He will heal, heal, get some damage in, throw a nade here, sleep someone here. He's always doing something, and that needs to be you at high elo. That is how you become the difference maker, is by doing more than the enemy Ana is doing. Just playing passively and healing is not doing more. Now, yes, there are some games where you're going to be heavily targeted, and you just need to stay alive much more than that. But in a lot of games, there are huge, obvious examples or scenarios where you could be getting more impact if you start to push those limits. And another aspect of this, and I'm going to reiterate this a lot, but it's really important, if you don't have the mechanical skill to back up some of these aggressive plays, then that's something you need to work on. Ana players are among some of the highest mechanically talented players ever in pro play. If you do not have a high level mechanical skill but you're playing Ana, there's going to be a point in time where you're going to start suffering for it. So you got to hit that Kovac aim trainer. You got to be practicing your aim, practicing your mechanics, improving every day, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to hit those peaks on Ana and start to carry with confidence. Now moving on to the next character for low elo. This one's pretty simple. She's been good for a while and she's still good, Ashe. And what you should be doing on Ashe is just dealing that constant damage. Hitting consistent dynamites is actually just very easy. I mean, you just throw a dynamite in front of you, it lines up perfectly with your weapon, and it's really easy to shoot. But getting constant dynamites on the enemy is actually overpowered, because a lot of supports, they can't handle that amount of pressure. When they're on fire, the DPS is on fire, their tanks are taking damage, there's just so much for them to micromanage, and the more consistent damage you're putting on them, it's like you're putting pressure on them, and it's like a litmus test, right? Where the pressure is pushing down on those supports, and it's even worse when one of them gets picked off. Then the last support is just like crushing under the pressure, because he has to heal so many different people, perfectly balanced, manage their health and all these players' health, and it's just too much. And Ashe can really pressure that. I mean, one strongly placed dynamite that gets like 4 people can automatically just win a team fight like that if the enemy is pressured and your team goes in at the same time. So don't be afraid to abuse Ashe, and on top of that, she's just one of the best hit scans right now that has her own survivability, and she's pretty easy to use. I would highly suggest her if you want to get out of elo hell. Now moving on to the next character in the high elo tier, we have none other than Tracer. Now, Tracer is one of those characters in high elo that, like with all these characters I talked about, require a great deal of mechanical skill. I mean, winning those duels is going to be very important, but I'm going to talk about a few things that you should be doing outside of that. The first thing that you should be doing is finding the weak spot, and that could be the weak link in the enemy team, whether it's a really bad support, someone that you know can't duel you, you kind of felt out the enemy team, you felt out how much respect they deserve, and you punish the person that you know doesn't deserve your respect. That's the first thing you could do. The second thing you could do is just keep poking and prodding until your team help you create that weak spot. Whether it's your wrecking ball coming in or your monkey coming in. Because remember, when you start climbing to high elo, you're going to have better teammates, and there will be opportunity for you to put in a little bit of pressure and see it break. Because you got to remember, every single game, right, is a push and pull. Back and forth of pressure onto each other, right? Just like with that Ashe example I just gave you. But if you're like lifting a really heavy rate, right, maybe someone could just like kick your foot. That's all it takes. Just a little kick in the foot and you would fall, right? Because you don't have stable footing. There's so much pressure on you. It's the same way with Tracer. But if you're standing upright, you're all good, you're good to go in this analogy, and someone just kicks your foot, you're just gonna be like, what the heck, shoo, go away. That is the equivalent of what Tracer can do if the pressure is implemented at the proper time versus useless pressure. But sometimes it's hard to find where that weakness is, so you want to be fishing around looking for opportunity, forcing opportunity with your pulse bombs, and then whenever there is a pressure-based scenario, you find that weak spot, you find that frail spot, and you capitalize on it. Just like that, you carry a whole bunch of games that way. Now move on to the last character for low tier, low elo players, and it's none other than Pharah. And this one should be pretty obvious. This also applies to console players, but Pharah is a character that, if enemies don't have a good Widowmaker player, you can play around everything else. And Widowmaker is one of the hardest characters to play in the entire game. We've talked about this many times. And if an enemy doesn't have a good Widowmaker player, as long as you distance yourself far enough, or if you have a pocket, you can play around it. Because a lot of the other hit scans in the game have huge fall off, with the one exception being probably a damage boosted Ashe, which is probably your worst matchup that you could see in low elo. But for everything else, there's ways to play around it. You could spam away a lot of these hit scans, do damage from really far away, or route around natural cover using vertical buildings to try to make a dive bomb play on them. Now, one of the most underrated and overpowered things on Pharah is simply just booping enemy players into your team. You got a Roadhog, you got a Zarya, you boop their DPS or their support or their tank into your team. They're gonna get naded, hooked, murdered. That's all you gotta do, and it's pretty free value. And a lot of enemies are gonna spread out because they're trying to get an angle to contest you. But if you play really passive and everyone on the enemy team is focusing you, that brings a lot of inherent value as well. Definitely don't sleep on Pharah. She'll help you fly up the ranks with ease. Oh my god, I hate myself. Anyways, moving on to the final character in High Elo. This is none other than Zen, who has a astronomically high win rate right now in GM+. And Zen is actually one of those characters that if you have the skill required, you understand the win condition behind team fights, and you are really comfortable, you could dominate. Now, the thing that you need to do on Zen, though, is with every Zen player, there's a litmus test. And the litmus test is, can you defend yourself and can you force the enemy DPS to respect you? Now, I'm not saying that you have to like 1v2 the enemy Tracer and the Genji coming after you. That is very difficult even for pro players. What I am saying is some percentage of the time, you need to be able to win a matchup without peel. You need to be able to duel an enemy. And another thing that you need to understand is you could set up scenarios where you actually get to make an unfair matchup, whether that is flanking an enemy or discording and hitting an enemy in the head before they can even react or whatever. I mean, flanking is very powerful on Zen because he doesn't have footsteps, but at its core, Zen is, yes, a support, but he also is partially a DPS. And if you catch people by surprise, you can burst them max HP to 0 so damn quickly, but you can't afford to miss those easy shots. You can't afford to give away your position without actually getting some value. So as long as you master those things and you hone those skills on Zen, you're gonna have a lot of fun in your games because Zen is one of the most fun characters in the entire game to play and has a very high potential carry ceiling, so to speak, where he can carry a lot of games with bringing forth the value of a peeling support and the value of a DPS all in one. Anyways, if you want to master any of the characters on this list, definitely go check out GameLeap.com. We have in-depth advanced VOD reviews, advanced tips and tricks, and everything you need to master Doomfist, Roadhog, Ashe, Moira, Pharah, Sombra, Zarya, on Tracer, and Zen. So do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. Thank you so much for coming by. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time.